Neck-throughs, guitars, they're like a guy that won't have a beer with you.
I want to hear what's pushing the notes.
Freddie King and B.B. King, Albert King, and let's not forget Burger King.
I don't want to blow my knuckle out.
Stainless steel is the work of the devil.
These go to 11.
From the East Amplification Tone Labs in Baltimore, Maryland, it's the Amps and Axes Show with your hosts, Jeff the Godfather of Low Wattage Amps Bober and Mick Marcelino.
Well, good day to you, Mr. Bober.
Good day to you, Mr. Marcelino. It's a chilly day, but it's a good day.
It's a great day, and I'll tell you why. We have to do a ginormous thank you. I wish I had some sound effects. At some point, I'm going to get a little sound effects thing.
There's a drum roll for you.
We have over 1,000 followers on Twitter.
Awesome.
And we cannot thank the people
Thank you,
enough.
thank you.
We were at 999, and I said, hey, man, we need one more. And I guess they responded. And when I went to look, and I was going to give out a big shout to the 1,000th person,
you don't know who it is.
4 people jumped on.
So thank you for
so I put
1,000 through 1,004.
Yes,
so
I put that out. The big thank you, and since then we are now at 1,005 followers. So
wow,
we're doing the cool
now they're
thing.
Just jumping on the bandwagon.
And that's okay. They can jump all over the wagon.
That's right.
And while they're jumping on the wagon, they ought to jump on our website and click through the Amazon banner.
Christmas is coming.
Yeah, man. And I tell you what, I got my 3 packs of strings, like I told you the other day.
You said you purchased those, yes.
And it's painless. Painless. And there's no extra cost, and you wet our beaks a little bit, and that helps.
And my significant other, Petra, was, as soon as she gets a moment, she was actually going to click through and some books she needs to order. So
there you go, man.
I mean,
it's not just musical stuff. It's everything that Amazon offers. Our banner takes you to the instrument side of it, because I figured
I saw that because I went through and bookmarked it.
Yeah, and I figure, doing what we do, it would be kind of a good idea. So thank you, though, for everybody listening, spreading the word, telling a friend. I put the tweet out. Everybody responded. It's awesome. And, it's just moving on, man. I mean, it's awesome.
Fantastic.
I can't say awesome enough in this sentence.
Thank you all very, very, very much.
Yes.
A heartfelt thank you.
Yeah, man. And, I wanted to talk to you a little bit. I found this today, actually. You know the guys. I don't know the guys, and I guess we're going to have the guys on it sometime. You had been talking about it, but I know their schedules are pretty heavy. Okay. But our friends over at Knaggs Guitars.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes.
They just released a signature model for Steve Stevens.
Yes, they've been building custom models for him now for, I guess, probably a good year or so, I would think.
Now they're going to do 100 instruments in 3 colors, red, white, and black, because there's really no other colors. And
well, if you're all American, to be blue there.
Well, that's true. Yeah. But the red is sparkle, and then cream. I don't know. Cream is white.
Kind of.
And we have words for everything.
Looks white on stage.
I go in.
Is it cream or ivory?
Well, I go into a hardware store the other day, and I said, "Yeah, I need some tan tile," and the guy goes, "Well, we have sandalwood," and I'm like, "What is that?" I'm like, "Sandal." I'm like, "Wood." Where do they come up with? Is there a committee of people that sit around all day and come up with these names? I mean, cream is cream.
Well, we started with calling colors other things back in the 80s when they invented the word mauve.
Yes.
And from there it's just gone to hell in a handbasket.
And then Eddie Van Halen screwed with everybody when he said, "Oh, it's got the brown sound."
Right.
And it was like you just put color to sound.
I like that.
It is kind of cool.
Yeah. It tastes blue.
Yes.
I like that.
So anyway, this guitar looks a lot like an LP.
An LP, right?
Yeah. I guess we could say Les Paul.
He won't mind.
It's got a little bit of a, they had to, of course, they can't make it identical.
Right.
Because Gibson has no problem suing people on the Eastern Shore. And
True.
But a very cool looking instrument, and I'm sure it's got I think it's got bare knuckle pickups in it, if I'm not mistaken. Let me just peruse through here.
Could be possible.
Rosewood fingerboard, mother of pearl inlays, ray gun on the headstock, signature bare knuckle pickups engraved with ray guns, not available in any other guitar.
Well, see, there you go.
So
that's like custom.
You want your bare knuckle pickups with a ray gun, you got to pick up one of these bad boys.
Now, see, is this the double signature? Is this another double signature according to your standards?
Well, I don't know.
It's a Knaggs.
It's a Knaggs.
Come on, see, this fits your.
But Fender was not a guitar player. Is Knaggs a guitar player, or is he just a luthier?
You know what? I think most people are players. I think
it's like amp guys.
I don't know.
Almost every amp guy is a guitar player,
right? I think you have to be.
Is it a prerequisite these days?
Well, no. I mean, just when it comes to building amps, it's like I could put something together. You wouldn't
have a clue if it sounded
that
good
was
or not.
Electrically and mathematically perfect.
Yeah,
probably sound like crap.
Yeah, I know that guy.
Yeah, there was one out there that comes to mind, and it was supposed to be designed to the hilt and absolutely perfect, and I don't know what's perfect about it, but it's not the sound.
Exactly.
It's not all numbers.
Sorry, kids. It's an inside joke, and one day we'll let you in on it.
Yeah.
These guys, if you get a chance, check them out. I mean,
they're fantastic guitars.
They
really are.
Put serious effort into these guitars. They rank up there with our buddy Jason Schroeder.
Yeah.
They're with the McNaughts. I mean, all the crazy high-end electric guitars, these guys rank right in there. I mean,
for sure.
These are works of art.
And some innovations on there too.
They had that tremolo that doesn't lose
the trem, the
vibration or something.
That was the first place that I had seen what do they call it? The grand piano kind of bridge.
Yes.
I think that's commercially available now. Hipshot has them.
Yes.
It's the first place I've seen them. I didn't know if it was Joe's or not, but I know he went to using that because somehow I guess it has something to do with string length.
It increases the E string length.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's an angle, so it increases.
Yeah. So I don't know. I mean, obviously, if you increase the length, it's going to get more tension. More tension, it's going to ring at longer at lower tunings.
Mm-hmm.
So like if you take your Les Paul or my SG or whatever, at very short scale, you try to drop that down a half step, that string is just a flopping, man. It's
not so much a half step. You go a whole step.
Yeah. Drop D.
Yeah.
If you did it like a drop D tuning, that E is flapping around.
Yeah, I mean, you really need to come up a gauge in strings
exactly
in order to make up for that.
That's why the Zakk Wylde the Zakk Wylde string set, I think, goes to a 60 because he tunes down to A.
Oh, really? Wow.
Yeah, there's
not even C. It's
there's some weird stuff that he does. So he has a couple guitars that are like that.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, to get back to the main point, when you put that grand piano stop tail on there, it extends that E longer, and I guess picks you up enough tension that you could drop down without having to go to a 60 or something crazy.
And even like I said, it extends all the strings because it's on an angle.
Yeah. It's not normal.
No, but. Even if you're a guy that mid show you just reach over and do a drop D tuning real quick, it's probably
a little bit more
stable. I think
you probably get the tension that goes across a lot better.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
Yeah,
I think it's cool. I've seen them.
Yeah,
they're definitely different.
And the innovations on the whammies and it's such a quality guitar. It's a great piece.
Yeah, it's one of those ones that I look at and I go. If I was stupid rich and I had the money to, and it didn't matter dings, you know what I mean? We had this conversation.
Well,
if the dings didn't matter,
look, at this point, with the 25% increase that Gibson just put on their guitars,
Just buy a Knaggs.
Just buy a Knaggs. Just freaking buy a Knaggs.
Buy a Knaggs. They'll stay up late to make it, and you'll get an instrument that you'll be insanely
Like there are
love with.
people making them, and not many, just a few people making these things, and they're awesome. Yeah, they've been making Steve Stevens custom things for, it's got to be at least a year or so now. And the little ray gun up top, because that's
his signature thing.
Yeah, even on the...
we had this conversation. I thought it was the AaA flanger, because he does use an old AaA, reissue AaA flanger. They went... How sad for AaA. They had their thing. They kind of went out of business. They brought that pedal out, which is an exact reproduction of the original 70s version.
Which he used.
And everybody went crazy over it.
Yeah.
It sold like crazy, and then they went belly up again. Horrible story. I mean, who was doing the financing over there?
Yeah, I don't know.
Just weird. Anyway, so I thought that was that flanger. I mean, I'm sorry, the flanger.
The ray gun effect.
Yeah, the ray gun effect.
In Rebel Yell.
Yeah, and you tell me it's a ray gun.
It's a little plastic kid's toy ray gun.
Sort of like Paul Gilbert with the drill.
Right,
and putting the picks
Put
on
the pick on the drill. Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
And then Eddie used a cordless drill just to get that sound in Pound Cake.
Pound Cake, yeah.
So that's just the drill next to the pickups.
Oh, by the way, just to let everybody know, as a safety tip, do not use a corded drill. You will probably put yourself in the hospital.
That's true. Especially if you have an old one laying around that's got like a 2-prong plug on it or something.
It will arc.
It could. It definitely could. It has the potential.
Yes.
It won't happen with a battery drill. So
no.
Use
you can do a battery drill all day long. The Makita is the one that you want to go for because it doesn't have the instant brake. It actually winds down for about a half a second or so.
Yeah, it's slow up and slow down.
Yeah. So, and that's Paul did that years ago, and he used to have the 3 picks on the end. And he would actually do solos with the thing. And then when Mr. Big came out, him and Billy did it in Mother, Brother, Sister, whatever the name. I forget. Forgive me, the name of the song. But they did this dual solo, where they both had the triple picks on it. Like Billy and Paul need to pick faster.
Right. Like the fingers aren't fast enough.
Not at all.
Yeah. No.
Yeah. They're a pair of slouches.
Right.
So
guys, learn how to play your instruments.
So definitely, this is a limited run. Probably the way limited runs go with companies like this, probably all gone. Probably all.
Yeah, they were probably half
for.
gone before they made the announcement.
Exactly. Probably all accounted for. But definitely check out Knaggs Guitars, man.
But, hopefully they're accounted for with dealers, and you'll be able to find them at dealers. I don't even know if Joe sells direct. I'm not sure. They might just all be through their dealers. And,
we'll have to.
I would assume they deal with a lot of brick and mortar dealers and not big box things. And because I haven't seen any Knaggs in big boxes. So, God bless you guys if you're dealing with the small mom and pops that made it through, They're if they're still in business, we need to support them.
Yeah, it's funny, without going too far into this, it's just like hardware stores. Where I grew up, we had this local hardware store. It was there forever. I think the guy died in the place, and he was like 80, 85, something like that. Mr. Moody was his name. This was in Harford County, Maryland, way out in the sticks, okay? And you could go in there and you could get like a number 3 flathead screw made out of brass. And if you try to find like a number 3 anywhere on the planet, good luck, because it's such an oddball screw that nobody will have. None of these big stores. And that was the whole premise when Heckingers came out. Remember Heckingers back in the day?
Yes.
They, all the small mom and pops, they held pretty strong because that was their motto. You may not, look, we can't, you can buy a PVC all day long at Heckingers for nothing.
Right.
Now it's Home Depot and Lowe's. And they can't beat their price.
We can't beat their price.
They can't beat that. No. But when you need the number 3 screw, they got it.
Right.
They got boxes of them. And
I love hardware stores like that. I love them.
Exactly. Well, the same thing with music stores.
Yeah.
And that's why definitely, this whole bring it back in 30 days, It never existed. It never. My buddy Joe Noto, who owns Music Land in Harford County, Bel Air. That guy's been in business for 40 years, probably 50 years. He's been there forever. He would have never survived if you could take it back. Yeah, well, use it for 28 days and take it back.
Yeah, it's not a good business model because too many people take advantage of it.
Well, it put Mars Music out of business.
Yeah, and that is the way to crush everything around you heartlessly because nobody can compete with that.
Not at all.
But the thing is to be sure of what you want and go buy what you want and freaking keep it and play it and use it or whatever you do with it. Be serious about it.
Exactly.
Commit to it, and because it's people's livelihoods.
It really is. And
baby needs a new pair of shoes.
And where I live, there's a local guy has a small music store, Coffee Music.
Yeah.
I bought a guitar from them, and I know I paid close to $300-400 over what I could have got it from the big box store, and I thought, so what? I'm going to put it in there, and I know that I was paying more, but I was like, I'm keeping the lights on in this place,
right?
Right. I'm helping keeping that thing going because that's something that
it should mean more than just price.
Sure,
to everyone.
And here's the cool thing: like Bill's, the guys working behind the counter, seasoned musicians, been playing guitar or bass or drums or whatever 40 years. They've been in, they play in big bands. All the guys at Bill's Music out in Catonsville, Maryland, those guys have been, every single one of them.
Oh, yeah.
Have played, and it's same thing with Washington Music, too.
Chuck Levins.
Chuck Levins.
Yeah, that's an institution. That place
is the greatest play. Paul Shine. Paul Shine wrote me a wife receipt.
Yeah, you gotta love those, man. You gotta love those. And great segue. Speaking of Washington Music, our friends over at Brubaker, are now putting out a nice new bass at a cool price point, and they're going through them at Washington Music.
Is this the Brute series under their Brute line? Is that what they call that?
I don't know. It's a JXB standard. It's like it's very Fender jazz bass.
Yes, we saw the prototypes when we interviewed him.
Yeah, we did. They're finally out now.
Very cool.
Took them a while to get it to the quality that they wanted it to be, to still remain at the price point they wanted to be at.
Nice.
But I know they kept Chuck Levins waiting a while. They kept Washington Music waiting a while. But when they got them, they went right through them, and it's like, we need more. So. Yeah, I mean, if you're looking for a nice, good, I think they're doing them in 4 and 5 string. It's called the JXB Standard. Alder body, hard maple neck, rosewood fretboard. It's really a nice guitar. Let me see. What is it? Aguilar hum canceling pickups. I mean,
you can't go wrong.
Right, good stuff.
Well, he is without a doubt, hands down, a master builder.
Yeah.
But his basses are second to none.
Yeah.
He really, that's where his strong suit, I mean, his guitars are insane.
Yeah.
But the basses just are crazy.
Well, Kevin's a bass player, and you go the extra mile, what you know the most of,
and he
does
knows
a killer job, man.
He defies logic with some of that stuff. I just look at it and I go, that's a lot of math and a lot of work to get where you're going.
We talked about the neck pockets before.
It's like, insane.
Goddamn things are 10 inches long,
and they don't taper.
Yeah,
so you got a neck that's tapering that goes into a hole that's not tapered.
Yeah.
So they have to do all this figuring, all this handwork, and then
make it right every time,
and it fits perfect.
Yeah, it's literally tighter than a glove.
Yeah,
it's crazy,
and it's all this crazy bolt-in configuration. He just takes it to this whole, and he makes his own preamps.
Yeah,
he's got a preamp module that plugs right in.
Goes into plugs into the bass.
It's like a big cavity, just drops in, and
it's a whole module. All the tone controls, volume controls, everything's there. And he invented that. That's really cool.
He comes up with the craziest ideas, and that is just even cooler because now, some of his basses are high end. I mean, they
absolutely,
and a lot of one off you'll be waiting, but these kind of give you that quality without.
Right.
You don't have to dig
in a more
deep.
standard format, and you don't dig too deep. And so, if
Exactly.
you're looking for a bass, check out the Brubaker. The new
yeah, man.
JXB series.
You definitely won't go wrong there.
No, not at all. So, yeah. Well, speaking of basses, our guest is not a bass player, at least not that I know of. Hell of a guitar player.
And I've read some of his stuff, man. It's just crazy.
Yeah, he's been involved with the big boys as far as
Yes.
a couple of the big manufacturers for his career.
Mm-hmm.
He's moved on to other things now. He's done his time there, and he's moved on to other things now, and helped develop one of the really more unique products out there now that just got developed.
Yeah, we've talked about this, so I'm not going to say anything until we get him on the horn. But yeah, we gotta.
Yeah, he was influential in the development of that product.
Get in there and find out all the good details.
And he and like you, he likes cars too.
I know. So there's gonna be this little part here. I gotta ask,
of course,
and I hope everybody out there is cool. Who doesn't like cars?
Right.
So,
well, if you got to get somewhere, you got to like it to a certain degree.
Exactly. You may not know. I'll try not to dig too deep. I just want to ask a couple questions. Nothing.
Yeah, that's fine.
Because I could go crazy with cars.
I'm sure. That's a whole nother program.
I know. And I don't know how to do that because I don't have any. Never mind. I'd have to find a race car driver to start that, and that ain't going to happen.
That's true. And that's neither me nor you. But, we will be right back with our guest, Mr. I can't even speak today. I'm so burned out.
Look at
Mr. Ritchie Fliegler. Richie, love you.
Hi, this is Vinny Smith from V-Picks Guitar Picks, and you are listening to Amps and Axes.
So, as promised, a man that has been in the MI industry for quite a while and was influential in the development of a very cool product, and as we said, likes cars too.
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Ritchie Fliegler. Richie, how are you, my friend?
I'm doing great, guys. Good to hear you.
Excellent. And this is my co-host, Mick. Say hi, Mick.
Hi, Richie.
Hello. How are you tonight?
I am great. And when we get to the cars part of it, I'm your guy.
Well, why don't we just go there now, since I'm really kind of sick of talking about amps and stuff.
See, I knew that, but I got to touch a little bit on that, my friend. Come on. So, yeah, you've been in the industry for quite a long time.
Yeah, sad but true.
It's not sad.
Depending on how you count it, I've been doing something in music since I was a mere tyke, but I don't know, sometime in the early 70s, I started working at a place called the Guitar Lab in New York. We, repaired guitars and amps and stuff, and on and on and on and on. Eventually, doing some consulting for Gibson, and eventually working for Korg Marshall, eventually working with Fender, and eventually just saying screw all that and leaving.
Well, there's the nutshell right there. All right, so let's go back to the tyke for a minute.
Okay.
Because that's I like to ask people what got you started. What made you pick up the sixth string? To was it the girls or what was it?
No. The tyke thing is always really where the illness strikes, right?
Oh yeah.
I come from one of those families, right? I had relatives who played cello and symphony orchestras and that kind of stuff. And while neither one of my parents would be confused with being like a great musician. There was a piano in their house, in my father's house when he was growing up, and my aunt was they would play like boom diada boom diada boom, that kind of stuff, and so it was when I was 4 years old. It was just like, okay, the kid's gonna play an instrument, and it was just okay, it was no more. There was no stretch there, you know what I mean? It was just like, okay, you're 4 years old. Your parents introduced you to a lot of things. And
right.
In this case, it was the recorder, right?
Of course.
And yeah, just so I played in a little like preschool recorder band that if you know New York City, I lived in Queens at this point. There's a place called Forest Park. Every borough in New York has its big park, right? Everybody knows Central Park, but there's Prospect Park in Brooklyn and Forest Park in Queens and Van Cortlandt Park in the Bronx, and who cares about Staten Island? But the thing is, we played in. Just 4 years old. I'm playing lead recorder in the band shell at Forest Park. And
I didn't know there was such a thing as lead recorder.
Well, have 25 kids, and there's only one that can play in tune and in time. I guess. So
I guess that qualifies.
Yeah, it gets you there.
That's right.
From there on, I around maybe 6 or 7, I started to play the violin, and which was the other, there's the law, it's like, you will play violin now. I said, okay, fine now. And I played that all through high school and whatnot, and it comes in very handy when I'm trying to do mandolin parts in, Rod Stewart songs. It was fine, I just playing violin, and then, unlike most of my contemporaries, I mean, I saw the Beatles on Ed Sullivan, and I thought they were okay, it was kind of fun, and I saw the Stones on Ed Sullivan and thought they were okay, and I saw the Dave Clark Five and I thought they were okay. And I saw
I remember that trilogy from when I was a kid. First, it was the Beatles and the Stones and the Dave Clark Five. I don't know why. It seems like I'm the only person that remembers the Dave Clark Five, but I remember those 3 vividly.
Well, I've always this won't be the last time, but I always preferred the Dave Clark Five at the time. And people forget the Dave Clark Five were the bigger band. They sold more records. They did. I mean, they had more hits. They were the guys, man. And I love. I mean, Mike Smith. I just love that band, But for another time, anyway. But that was cool, and I enjoyed it well enough. But then I saw Pete Townsend break a guitar. And I said, "Oh, that's cool. I could do that," And that's when I picked up guitar. I was about 13 years old, and I wasn't about 13 years. I was 13 years old, and I decided to play guitar. And it was cool. It had frets. It was easier to play. You didn't have to deal with a bow, which was, if you've ever played a violin, that the right hand is the devil on that one. Mm-hmm. And that was it. I never took lessons on a guitar. I just kind of learned how to play it, and that's the sad tale.
So 13, and he picks up the first guitar. Do you remember what it was?
Yeah, this is a great story. All right, it's like the first one was just. This kind of relates to it. So the very first one was like a harmony something or other, right?
Okay.
But and that was, it was okay. It was like one of those mahogany, like all mahogany cheapo guitars, Mm-hmm. And there's probably somebody in Vintage Guitar right now who has one for sale for $5,000 or something. It's like,
I'm sure.
It's made for slide, man. It's unplayable and has really bad action, so you can play slide on it.
All those early guitars must have been made for slide then.
Yeah, exactly. So here's the thing. So this was the beginning of a thing, right? And it actually carried me through it. So all of the guys that I really looked to either played Telecasters or 335s. I mean, think of the British Invasion, right? Mm-hmm. Those were the 2 guitars that everybody played. I mean, Jeff Beck played a Telecaster. The guys, Hilton Valentine played a Telecaster. Richie Blackmore played a 335. The guys in the Hollies played 335s. I mean, that's what they all played. Yeah,
I had a friend of mine who said he prefers Blackmore's 335 sound, and as much as I try to agree with him, I can't. For me, it's the Strat.
Yeah, come on, play Hush. Tell me, come on, are you serious? I mean, when was
the Strat? I mean, Hush. Look, Hush. I give it to you. It was a fantastic song, and honestly, when Hush came out, I really didn't even know who it was, and I for some reason I just didn't know who it was. Right. And later on, I guess the next Deep Purple album came out. Yeah. And I'm going, oh, these guys are freaking great. I love this. Yeah. And then I find out it's the same guys that did Hush. Yeah. And that album was nothing like the song Hush.
Yeah.
But I still prefer that. The Strat sound was one of 2 real mainstay sounds for me back in the day that really formed my ears. It was the Strat, a Blackmore Strat, and Leslie's Jr.
Nothing wrong with Leslie's Jr., that's for sure. But you know what? The thing is that, and this is where I kind of diverge from a lot of guitar players.
Okay.
As far as I'm concerned, you could if I could get the multi-tracks of Deep Purple records, I would just erase Blackmore and listen to John Lord and have really great records without all that freaking wanking and shit that he does on there that I can't listen to. I mean, if you listen to Hush and you listen to Smoke on the Way, it's you listen to all the songs, and the parts that you love are the Hammond parts. And,
for sure.
You know,
he was Lord. He was Lord of the Hammond.
Oh my God.
John Lord was, I mean, my God. All of those parts. I mean, every guitar player, you see, he was playing Hush. You see him going like, they're trying to play. That's the organ part.
That's the percussiveness of the organ. Yeah,
it's amazing, right? And so on that record, the organ is double tracked. You can hear it. That was pretty advanced, right? And I just love that song. Everything about it is just. I just love that song. Yeah, what can I tell you? But
it's awesome.
Anyway, so. This kind of relates. This experience actually served me very well in my life. So I'm 13. I'm about to get bar mitzvahed, right? And I'm looking at all the guitars, and I was not far away from Sam Ash. I was a very early Sam Ash adopter in Brooklyn, the original store, and then later on in the Long Island store at Walt Whitman. Friendly with the family today. They're just fabulous. And one of the great things about Sam Ash for me is I used to just hang out in front of the store and in the store and just look at stuff, and they never threw me out, which I always liked. Nice. So, they made a customer at 10 years old, you know what I mean? Anyway, so at 13, I'm going to get bar mitzvah, and I'm going to get an electric guitar for my bar mitzvah, right? And I'm really excited. And so, what do you want? And, I want one of these. And I show them a picture of a 335 because that's the guitar I want. And, the big day comes, and I open the case, and in there is a Guild Starfire, which some fantastic salesman told my parents was the same thing, only half the price.
Wow.
And I don't know.
Might have been half the price, but that's where it stops.
Well, yeah. So I opened that case, and I actually started crying. Because I couldn't hide it. I was so... On one hand, I had my first electric guitar, and on the other hand, I had this absolute stinking piece of shit in a case. You know what I mean? That was just, the most miserable, look-alike to the thing that I really wanted. You know what I mean?
It's like you wanted Nikes and you got Reebok.
Exactly. You know what I mean? And 40 years later, I'm the senior vice president of the company that owns Guild,
Right. And he still hates the damn guitar.
Well, it did.
First thing we do, we pull that
conversation there about people that would, when you think about, all the Guild guys would be going, it's Guild, it's an American icon, it's American,
right.
It's the greatest icon. No, it's the guitar that kids get when they cry, And,
oh, man.
Wow.
And there's really nothing wrong with that because Gibson needed a Guild. They needed a go-to. There was no Squire at the time. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Sure. Yeah.
So companies like Guild and and Epiphone earlier on, filled that function. A reasonable guitar at a lesser price. And
right.
So but it was but we used to have these really deep discussions. It's like. And I would just argue, saying, "Look, man, no one ever got. It's like Peavy. No one ever said, it's like I'm getting my Peavy today. It's like they buy them and they buy tons of stuff and they make tons of stuff and people use them and they're just. I'm sure they're fine, but you know what I mean. It's like. It's a TO product. You know what I mean? It's like you only have $100. You can have this.
Right.
Well, you got to put something in a landfill.
Well, kids need somewhere to progress from.
Yes.
Right. Exactly.
Yes.
Of course, there's a market for it. Of course,
That's right.
and they were probably a little cheaper there than anywhere else because less transportation to get them there. They were kind of local guys, really.
Straight from New Jersey.
That's right.
Put them in the back of a truck and go.
Well, depending on where in New Jersey, they would go in the back of the truck, fall off, and then.
That's right. Have I got a deal for you?
That's a whole nother podcast.
That's right.
The Jersey Music Business Podcast. You want a guitar? I got guitars. You don't want guitars? I got a way to get rid of them. You know what I'm saying?
That's right. This construction project. No, we won't go there.
Yeah. So anyway, it's not.
So did you play it, or did they return it, or
No. I had it for like 3 or 4 years. You know what I mean?
Okay.
And I finally, I just couldn't take it. When I was about 15 or 16 years old, there's a guy who's actually really, I think he's important in the guitar business. A guy named Ron Casella. Do you know who Ron Casella is?
I know the name.
Yeah, Ron Casella was one of the early guys at WD back when they were on Long Island.
Oh.
But he now has a company called Guitar Concepts, I believe is the name, in Florida. And Ron used to work for my dad as an electronics assembler. But at night, he would he was like Dr. Mengele with guitars and amps, And
Wow.
And like just like us, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully, eventually, you figure out how to make them better instead of worse, right? And but Ron works for my dad, and he was a guitar player, and he played in a number of Long Island bands in the style of like the Vagrants and the Hassles and all that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And he had some cool guitars, and we did a trade at one point for another kind of interesting thing, but eventually it turned into a Telecaster. You know what I mean? Which was
nice.
Which is
Wow.
A good guitar. I like that.
What kind of stuff were you into then when you you said the Blackmore thing, but
yeah. Well, I like, I listen to this, the Stones, the Who, the Beatles, all the British Invasion stuff. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I like rock and roll. I'm not really, I never really listened to jazz, or country or any of that stuff. Although I have a healthy respect, for. Some people are just so great. Johnny Cash, Ray Charles. It's not about, you don't say, I like jazz because I like Ray Charles. You just say, I like Ray Charles because he's the greatest musician that ever lived. It's like,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah. So, I'm a rock and roll guy. That's what I like.
Cool.
That is
Well,
very
you've
cool.
played with some notable rock and roll people over the years. I'm sure this is quite a time after you were 13. But
yes, I was, all through my 20s and 30s, I played with some people. I guess you want me to name them now, right?
I could throw it. I could throw out John Waite. I could throw out Lou Reed. I could throw out John Cale.
Yes, you could. Yes, you could. And those would all be true.
Yes.
So with that, I got to ask a question.
Okay.
Now, Joe Barden
Yes.
sold pickups
To Lou Reed.
to Lou Reed.
Right.
Oh, okay.
Do you know Joe?
Only tangentially, not from buying pickups from him. No, we're friends on Facebook. I certainly know who he is. Seems like a nice enough guy, but I've never met him. No.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Yeah, because it was a period of time there where he was working with Lou on developing some stuff for him. But then remember, they had him come in and find noise on the set and
Oh yeah.
on the stage because they had street lights. They actually had traffic lights
Oh, cool.
As part of the set.
as part of the set, and he said the thing was going crazy and there was this buzz. So he worked with him and he finally worked it out. And I thought, maybe you knew him that way. That'd be kind of weird.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it would be. Unfortunately, well, that sounds like it's probably later. I played with Lou in '78 and '79. We did a record called Street Hassle, and at the time, you got to go back in time and remember these things. He had an exclusive deal with BC Rich, which
Lou Reed did?
Wow.
Yeah, well, think about it. It wasn't what it became, right? It was, when it first started out with Joe Perry and all those guys playing them, they were kind of the cutting edge. And,
it was Bernie Rico.
It was Bernie Rico, exactly. Yeah. And, you couldn't really buy a Fender or a Gibson that was worth a damn. So, it was pretty cool, So I had to play a BC Rich, I guess is what I'm saying, so.
Okay.
But you played one of the originals, and he was innovative. He was doing neck through 24 fret.
Exactly.
Multiple pieces of wood for necks, bodies, everything. And his crazy active.
Yep.
Well, now what he did, he had passive pickups, but active circuitry inside of it to drive the front end of the amp like a distortion pedal. Because
he had a one transistor little preamp in there, like not unlike an
LPB1
Stratoblaster or something like that,
like an LPB1.
Yeah,
right.
Very famous, exactly.
Exactly. So, you did an SNL appearance with
John.
John Waite.
Yeah.
Was that Babies or Bad English or?
No, that was as the member of the John Waite Band.
Oh, the John Waite Band.
Yes,
Oh, okay.
it was him. It was during Missing You and all that stuff. So,
nice.
yeah, that was fun.
Now,
sure.
you know, it's funny. I got to see David Letterman.
Yes.
I got to go for one of his tapings back, and they had Rick Ocasek and Elliot Easton. It wasn't the Cars. It was those two.
Okay,
right.
They came out and did a song. Now, what was that like? Because when I watched that, I was in the audience. So they like wheeled everything out.
Yep.
It was all portable with that. It was just plug it in and it was going. I know with Saturday Night Live, they kind of give you a place, right?
Yeah,
like you're already set up. You don't even have to.
Yeah, you set up like the day before, and it's just kind of there. It's you set up and you just sound check. It's a pretty luxurious gig. I mean, it's the the whole thing about nobody ever runs in TV. You know what I mean? It's just like take it easy, Sonny boy. Everything will be fine. And it was very luxurious. It was good. It sounded good. It was fun. It's good.
Well, I mean, come on. Now you did have to play twice.
No, actually didn't.
You don't play. You don't play for the
no. Our
the
song
earlier
was,
show.
John, God bless him. Our second song was cut.
Really?
And so here's the funny thing. If you look at the show, you will never see me. And here's the reason. So the hit song was Missing You, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And at that point, without getting into things, I mostly had left John's band, mostly. And Earl Slick was the actual guitar player in the John Waite Band at that time, right? And so at the dress rehearsal and at the rehearsal the day before, we did Missing You and another song, which I forget. I don't remember it. Anyway, so John had recently seen Elvis Costello go on, who was supposed to do some, Allison or something, and just
he did radio instead.
Yeah, exactly. He said, screw this, and what he wanted. And John wanted to be just like that, right? And so he was, God bless him, he was telling us about it. He says, we're not going to do Missing You. That's a hit record, and that's crap. You know what I mean? We're going to do, God, if I can remember. It doesn't matter. It doesn't really matter.
Right.
The point was he wasn't going to do Missing You, right?
He was going to be the rebel.
Yeah, he's going to be rebel. He wasn't going to do Missing You. It was the song that I played on because, Earl was playing in the first song, right? Because, and he was telling us, but he didn't wait till we were behind closed doors, and he just and so some of the, stage managers or whoever heard this. And and they just said, no, you're not, buddy. And they just cut the second song out.
Wow.
Well, yeah.
So I did play. There's a videotape of the dress rehearsal. I've seen it. But when you see that show repeated, there's only one song.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's wild.
That's funny as hell.
Yeah. And I'm also in the end, waving, going, hey, everybody, it's great to play on SNL,
I was here really.
I was really here, and trust me,
I got craft services.
I got craft services and a union check.
See, there you go.
Hey, I've got this great idea that Elvis Costello.
It's
I think John Waite needed a more original idea, or at least keep that one quiet.
At least keep that one quiet. I think keeping it quiet was the issue.
That's so funny.
Oh, that's funny. Yeah. Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah.
It's just another experience in life.
It is.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah, it's character building.
Oh, absolutely. So you were, I'm sure, playing around for a while.
Yes.
Were you still playing when you went to work for one of the big guys?
Yeah. So most of my work, it was mostly studio work. Record stuff. I did a record with Tom Verlaine called Dreamtime. I did a lot of stuff. I was like one of the CBGB's guys, you know what I mean? And what I did was it wasn't that I was such a great player. It's just that I was mostly didn't drink or take drugs, So if they said, hey, be here at 10 o'clock, I'd be there at 9:58, So I basically made a career out of being on time. And
that's a big part of it.
Good
man.
lesson.
That's good lesson. Everybody out there, good lesson.
Show up sober.
Exactly. All you kids, pay attention.
That's right. On time and sober.
That's
there
right.
You go.
Yep, there it is. The two hallmarks. Yeah, so I was doing all that stuff, and and so this 70s becomes the 80s, becomes the 90s, and I kind of started seeing the handwriting on the wall. I was doing fine. I was doing great. Doing a lot of stuff, working with at a studio out in New Jersey called the House of Music, where Kool and the Gang recorded all this stuff, and a lot of the New Jersey bands did a lot of their recording. A great place, And I was making a living at it and all that, but I could see that it was changing, and it was just wasn't, bands were different, and I was in my 30s, and so one thing led to another, and some friends of mine asked me because I was like famous enough to be nobody, if you know what I mean. It's like, here's Ritchie Fliegler who played on these great records, but not so much that I would, I could command anything more than a couple of $100 and 3 square meals a day. They asked me to, ESP asked me to demo for them at the NAMM show, and this was like 1983 probably, right?
Wow.
And so I went there, and I went to the NAMM show as the guitar player for ESP, and started making friends immediately. We were right across the aisle from the Gibson booth. And this guy was so funny. This guy from Gibson comes across. They have this huge, Gibson display with a bunch of Marshall stacks, right? And some jackass from Gibson comes over and says, look at this imitation Japanese stuff. It's all imported. This imported junk. It's imported this. He gives, or imported, you need American-made stuff. And I said, that's pretty cool. It's like, when are they coming to take those Marshalls out of your booth?
Exactly.
And he goes, what do you mean? I said, well, is it imported stuff or just gooks that you hate? And
oh man,
that sets a tone.
He just went, and he went away after the song.
That's all he could do at that point. Go away.
It's kind of a funny thing because, like automotive manufacturers, in the early years when the Japanese came here, they pretty much just the big FU.
Yeah.
And now look at them.
Yeah. There.
It's like, I don't know. Sometimes Americans get a little, they get a little big headed and they're like, nobody can mess with us.
Until they do, and then it's over.
Yeah. Then they're scrambling.
People don't care that our cars rust through. And theirs aren't.
You need an oil dike in your backyard to drive it.
Yeah, exactly. It's always I always love, like some of these keyboard kings on the net, it's like they're out there, it's like, it's got to be made in America this, as they're typing it out on their Chinese-made computer, you know what I mean?
Exactly.
It's just like, really? I don't think so. Anyway,
ESP is a good guitar company.
Yeah, absolutely.
Their Japanese plant is high-end.
It was cool. I mean, at the time too, with the exchange rate. I mean, they were making. You could buy an ESP guitar. Again, remember, so it's 1983. I mean, think about this. Fender's making the worst, most miserable crap they've ever made in their entire history, right?
Yeah.
And here's a guitar that with because of the exchange rate for $250. I mean, it's crazy. They were really good. So anyway, I go to this thing, and I'm 4 days, and it's like, oh, this is pretty cool. This is like a whole thing here, And I did that for like 2 years, and the second year I learned that you could borrow amps from people.
Oh yeah.
And so I said, yeah, we should get like some, we were using some Randalls or something. I said, we should get like real amps, and they said, well, the Fender guys won't loan us anything. I said, well, that's all right. I don't particularly care for what they're doing right now, but can we get some Marshalls? I said, I don't know. So we went off and looked, and we met Mitch Colby.
Hey,
and,
we know him.
That's right.
Yeah, and that was that. So we had Marshalls there for a year or two, and then Mitch came up and said, "Hey, how'd you like to demo for us next year?" And I said, "Oh, sure, that would be fine."
Nice.
So
wow.
I did a demo year for Marshall, and then at the end on Sunday, it was kind of funny. The last day of the show, Mitch Jim and Ken, Ken Brand, came in and said, you like what you're doing? It's really good. You should come and work for us. And I said, you mean like a job? And they said, yeah, like a job. I said, well, do I have to do I go to like a place every day and like go to work and stuff? I mean, I've never done that. And they said, yeah. And Mitch goes, yeah, it's like a job. You would come to the office and we would pay you for being there every day.
Not unlike other jobs.
Yeah. Like other jobs. I never had one,
Right.
So I said,
work.
I don't know. I mean, talk to my wife about that. I don't know. It seems, I guess, people do that. It's like, and it was kind of weird, So, I went home and, just to wrap it all together here, it was like one of those things where, the world is changing. Studios are already starting to shut down. People are, people are making records on Akai's now, and I mean, it hadn't gone to Pro Tools yet, but what was happening,
Right.
And I took the job at Korg,
Nice.
and that was like my first job.
In what position did
I
they
was
have
product
you in?
manager.
Product manager. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. And that was mid-'80s?
That was 1989.
Oh, 89, late 80s.
Wow.
Okay.
Yeah,
89.
89. I went, it was January 1989, right after the show.
Nice.
Yeah, it was kind of funny. It was good, I learned a
quick.
lot. It was a great crew. I mean, obviously, Mitch knows what he's talking about, and being able to work with Jim and for a little bit Ken and Mike Hill, who's somebody most people never heard of, who was a big, cast a huge shadow at Marshall.
Wow.
Do you know who Mike Hill is? Do you ever hear that name?
No, I know his name. I've never met him. I'm surprised you got to work with Ken. That's awesome.
Well, only for a minute. I mean,
Okay.
for a minute. I mean, it was like, Ken was, on his way out, But Mike was there the entire time. And there was another gentleman named Keith Carnell, who was Mike and Keith were co-managing directors. And they were, man, and then, Mike Covens at Korg, and Larry DeMarco, who's now at, I mean, it was a dream team. I went to school there for sure,
Man.
Yeah.
What a first job.
It was pretty good.
What a first job, dude.
Yeah,
wow.
That is.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah, wow. So we did that, did that for 6 years. And during that time, we did a lot of fun stuff. Some of them people love me for. Some of them, they want to shoot me where I stand. But the one that they want to shoot me for is the one that, got, which was valve state, which is a word that I invented. It was funny. There was in the mid 70s, Hiwatt was really felt they were losing ground, right? And they had these giant like monoblock tube PA amplifiers, like 400 watts a side. They weren't that different from like a Mac, a ST, a 75 or something like that, right? And just these huge things. But they knew that the whole thing at the time, if you think about it, it was like all phase linear and H&H and all that kind of stuff were the big thing. So they felt bad about the fact that their amps were not solid state. So they called their line of PA amps tube state.
Tube state.
Tube state.
Boy, that couldn't get misinterpreted at all.
Exactly. So it stuck with me as being one of the dumbest things I'd ever heard. But it was just one of those kind of words. And so we're at a Marshall meeting saying, how are we going to, we're getting our asses handed to us in the States by, PV and Fender and stuff, I mean, if we had to make our stuff, half the price to be, 20% more expensive by the time it came over here, right?
Yeah.
So in a meeting, Keith actually came up. He said, just kind of one of those, I've been really thinking about why don't we just put a valve in one of these amps, and just, it'll be perceived as being a quasi valve amp and it'll have more value and people will buy them. And I just blurted out, I said, yeah, we can call them valve states. and because I had this tube state thing.
Right.
I'm sitting in Bletchley, so there must be a valve state amp, And right then and there, it was like, bang, done. The whole project. Wow. And the only thing that was left to be done was the entire product range. But, but the concept was completely formed in like that that 2 minutes. You know what I mean?
Wow.
Well,
and that was a huge product, man.
And
it was gigantic.
And let me tell you, people dismiss them.
Yeah,
on a lot of guitar players do. Just YouTube some of those old amps, and the volume is crazy.
Yep.
And they sound halfway decent. I mean, it's not.
Listen,
Listen,
I this is the thing, someone's got to get that Guild Starfire. You know what I mean? It's like you can't. You don't take a 13-year-old kid to a store, and buy a $4,000 handmade tube amp. You know what I mean?
That's true.
Just, something's got to be there, and it's like, and it's incumbent, on the manufacturer to make something that's just not junk. You know what I mean? And to also understand that it is what it is, and it's one of the reasons I have. I don't mind saying this out loud because they all know it. I mean, I just hate everybody who writes for every magazine ever in the world. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? It's just like they don't get it. They're the enemy. They think they're helping you, but they're the enemy. You know what I mean? And because they just don't get it. They look at something like a Valve State or a Fender Standard Series amp, or whatever, or even a PV Rage. I mean, how many guys got started out because they could afford to buy a PV Rage, And,
right. No, I mean, if you're a large manufacturer, you have to satisfy that market, or you're losing market share to somebody else that is.
Yeah,
it's that simple.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so you get a review, the new Marshall Valve State when compared to our hand wired, whatever, you know what I mean? We
all know it's you're not comparing two like items, so right. Why they even bother to do that is beyond me. I really think that's being unfair. It's not looking at it for what it is. Tell me what you think of it for what it is, not standing next to something else.
Plus then you get guys like Ty Tabor who comes out with a Lab series.
Oh, yeah.
And just everybody on the planet goes
drooling over its tone.
How in the hell is this guy doing this?
Right.
And they go, oh, it's a Lab series.
Solid state Lab series.
And it's like, remember that amp that you skipped over 50 times when you went in the music store? Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's what he's using.
Put a guy that can play in front of it and see what it sounds like.
Exactly.
That's how it works,
it sends me into orbit. And I can hear in your voice, Jeff, that you understand what I'm saying.
Oh, large, my friend, large. Yes.
It's an uncomfortable place, you know what I mean? And except for Premier Guitar, which is like, really those guys, and I know you write for them too, it's like they, it's like they got you, they got, Joel, they got guys there that get it, you know what I mean? So at least if they aggravate you, there's somewhere to go, you know what I mean? You know what I mean? It's like, guys that have kind of lived through it, you know what I mean? Who, here's the thing. I have a buddy who's one of the foremost wine authorities in the country, and he happens to have an award-winning restaurant here in Phoenix. He won on Iron Chef, which never happens. You know what I mean? That kind of stuff, right?
Okay.
And he also does wine reviews, and he never does a bad review. And I asked him, I said, Mark, his name is Mark Tarbell. I said, Mark, you never do a bad review. He says, yeah, that doesn't mean I don't ever get bad wines. I said, well, how does that work? He says, well, it says my job is to get people interested in wine, not to show them how much more I know about them than they do. Right? So my reviews are, if I get 10 bottles of wine and 5 of them are crap, I just don't review those. And I review the ones that are great and tell people why they should buy them and how to enjoy them. Right? And I think that's a great way of going about it. I think it's the right way to go about it.
Absolutely.
It's like, here's something good. This is what you can do with it. Enjoy yourself,
Look, what did your mother tell you? If you don't have something nice to say,
say nothing.
Period.
Yep.
Yeah,
do you really feel the need to kick somebody in the nuts for something? I mean, where does that get you?
Yeah.
A job at a guitar magazine.
Yeah, whatever. I really don't think you have to be that way, you know?
I don't think so. I think they do it, well, and we're painting with a really broad brush here, so I apologize in advance to all of you. But, you know, it's all right, man. The thing is it's important. I think it's important to, it's so hard to grow the market. Everything is shrinking. It's tough out there. It would seem to me that the whole thing would be about not BS positive, but positive. This is what this is about. Here's a $200 amp that sounds pretty darn good, and this with your Chinese Squire or Epiphone guitar, you can make music with this, because God only knows it was better than the solid state K amp and the piece of junk Guild that I had. You know what I mean?
And I was going to say that the entry level stuff now is so. I mean, it's
totally talked about.
It's exponentially better than anything you or I could have bought as a kid.
Oh my God, yes.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
The first guitar I had, the action was so high, I was like, well, this looks like a guitar.
Yeah, so, I mean...
We used to call them GLOs, guitar-like objects.
Yeah, that's So, really, I mean, judge things for what they are. And the Valve State, man, you did huge for that company.
Well, it really went well. And so, to cut to that chase, one day listen, Jeff, the way we know each other, it's kind of a fraternity. You got the guys, and the good part of the MI business is the same old guys for the last 40 years. And the bad part is the same old guys for the last 40 years.
Exactly.
I don't know if you've ever tried to hire anybody, but there's no one out there. You know what I mean?
Right.
And, so, we're all friends, and we all know each other. And I was friendly with Mike Lewis, and who was at the time the marketing manager for amplifiers at Fender, right? Mm-hmm. And since I was the product manager for amplifiers at Marshall, Mike and I were friendly, right? And and I was friendly with the guys over at Crate, and I mean it was just the way it was, right?
Right.
So anyway, the great Dan Smith was about to retire. Well, not retire. Actually, he was going to move to L.A. To Corona to work back there as the guitar head of R&D, right?
Oh, okay.
Because he never really liked living out here in Scottsdale, and so he was going to go back, and Mike was going to assume the position of marketing manager for guitars at Fender, which is think about that. I'm the marketing manager for guitars at Fender.
Yeah.
Which is cool.
Doesn't get much bigger.
Well, it does, actually, because the original company, for 6 years, they only made amps. The guitars were the afterthought. So, anyway, which I reminded everybody every day. Don't forget, you guitar guys, this is an amp company that just made a line extension. It worked okay, but, it's not what we do. So anyway, So Mike called me one night and said, I have Mr. Schultz here. He'd like to talk to you. I said, "Oh, wow, Bill Schultz! Holy shit!" It's like. So Bill gets on the phone, one of many conversations that went like this, and said, "So Mike tells me you're the guy at Marshall that's kicking my ass." And I said, "Well, Mr. Schultz, I believe I am."
I'd like to say yes, sir. I'm just not sure that I can.
Yeah, exactly. So I want you to come and work for me. I said, "Listen, Anyway, so long story short, it was a couple of weeks before Frankfurt. We met at Frankfurt. He made me an offer I couldn't refuse. And,
nice.
I stayed at Korg for another 4 months before I let the guys know so that my 401k could vest.
Well,
people don't know what drives this industry. These are the things that matter, kids.
If that's only going to take 4 months, you stick it out 4 months.
Yes. Yeah, exactly.
That's right, for sure.
Yeah, exactly. So I stuck it out, and then I came out here to sunny Arizona, and
beautiful Scottsdale, huh?
Well, I'm outside of Scottsdale. Fender was in Scottsdale. It's still in Scottsdale. Mm-hmm. I started as the marketing manager for amplifiers, and by the time I had enough and walked out, I was the senior vice president of marketing and product development and a million other things, licensing, blah, 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 blah.
Wow.
So,
wow.
Yeah.
And that was how long before you left there?
I did that for 12 years.
12 years. So you were there. You were at Fender longer than Marshall. So, okay.
For twice as long.
Yeah.
But here's the thing. I've been gone from Fender for almost 8 years. You know, it's like,
has it been that long?
I see. That's what happens, man. You see, you're old too.
You don't have to remind me, man. I don't know where the weeks go anymore. It's like, what? It's Friday?
I woke up yesterday and it was Sunday.
Yeah, this time last week it was tomorrow.
Exactly. Wow.
That's wild.
Yeah, that is wild. So, you know, I mean, and also you, in during this whole time, Mr. Fliegler's written a couple of books, written and or co-authored a couple of books.
My dad has never written a book.
Oh, sure.
I have one.
Oh, do you?
Yeah, when I was reading through the thing, I'm like, oh, I own that book.
I got this book.
I got that one, and I use it.
Well, you know what? So that was like, as I like giving credit to. Let me tell you something. I have been surrounded in my life by some of the greatest, most giving people. Not the least of which is my wonderful wife, Leslie. And when one of the issues at Marshall, and anybody who's working in the corporate world will understand this, is that the company was doing great. My boss was Mitch, who's like 4 or 5 months younger than I am. And other than wishing him, getting killed in a car accident or something, which I wouldn't wish on him because he was a great guy, I mean, there was no way out for me. You know what I mean? It's like, where do I go? For the rest of my life working as a product manager at Marshall. It's a small company. There was really no opportunity for advancement.
Wow.
And so Leslie says to me, you know all about this electronic stuff. You're always making things, and you make your own amps and all this other stuff, and always fixing radios, and the TV. You're fixing the TV all the time. I said, well, if I really fixed it, it would stay fixed. But yeah, she goes, you should become the amp guy. And I said, well, what do you mean by that? She goes, well, there's all these amp guys, but none of them are. If you wrote a book on amps, you would be the amp guy, and then you would be the guy that people would go to, and you would be able to get other work.
Smart girl.
Yeah, I know. It's like, really. It's like I said. I looked at her and said, "What are you doing with me?" Yeah. And so I approached. Some of the guys at Hal Leonard, and I said, there's all these amp books out there. Well, there wasn't all of them. It was Aspen's book, really, at the time, was the only one, which is basically, a book of schematics,
Right.
So, and
was Gerald's book out then, his first book?
No, not yet.
Okay.
Not yet. So I went to the Hal Leonard guy. I said, look, there's a bunch of guys, there's this book, and there's a bunch of guys out there make these amps or whatever. And there's Aspen's book, which is a bunch of, prints and service manuals and stuff, which is fine, and I use it all the time. But that's not really what I'm interested in. What I'm interested in, I think would make a good book is like, where does this stuff come from? How did this happen? Who are these guys? Who was Jim Marshall? Who is, who, I mean, who, just who, how did it happen? Who is Randy Smith? What was he thinking? And on and on and on. And that was really what the book is about. There's a little bit of technology stuff in the front and what have you. And, through it, I made some great friends. I mean, Mark Sampson's still a friend. These guys, Randy, I walk by Randy's booth. He still looks at me and goes, it's like,
hey, does that to me too.
Exactly. Yeah, you're the one that says it's okay to modify my amps to put a bias control on them. I go like, well, Randy, come on,
right?
You have an accelerator pedal on your car, right?
Yeah, it's like an idle control on a freaking carburetor, dude. I mean, exactly. Jesus.
You want to know some irony? You did that to my amp.
I did it to many of those amps.
You have to.
You have to, right?
Exactly.
Thank you.
Crazy. It's like. But anyway.
Yeah.
But it was. So the thing was, you get to know these guys, and when and I'm not suggesting that I'm his asshole buddy or whatever, but when he explains it from his point of view, it makes sense. I don't agree with it. I think it's an omission, but he says, this stuff is right, and I got the stuff, and I want it to sound this way, and I don't want people futzing with it and stuff, and that's why I don't put it on there. And it's like, and I go, well, I don't think that's right, and he says, well, I do, and I make them, and I go, you win,
right. So, it has your name on it, whatever.
Yeah.
As you're putting the pot in there.
Yeah. Right. Exactly.
Right.
So it was that's what the book is about. It's more of a love letter than a service manual. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
To just the ingenuity of it all, you know, and the whole. Just, you know, I mean, it's just amazing when you think about it. All these, you know, knuckleheads and how this stuff worked, you know, and it's like,
yeah.
I mean, the first time I met Mark Sampson was at a guitar show, you know, and I don't remember where it was. It might have been the New York Guitar Show in some basement or something. He was selling bolts of old Vox grill cloth, you know, and I still have some of it. You know, every amp I own has Vox grill cloth on it for some reason, and
it might have been the Village Guitar Show.
It might have been. Which down in the basement of that church, right?
Yeah.
I bet that's where it was. I can't imagine where else it might have been.
Mm-hmm.
You know, down on the east side somewhere. You know, there was. But you know, I mean, you know, Caesar. You know, all the guys. May he rest in peace, and all those. Yeah. You know, it was.
Diaz,
you know,
right?
it was good. So that's what the book was about. And the second one, you know, the first one was such a hit. You know, the guys at Half Leonard said, "Hey, do something else." And I said, "Well, you know, I used to break guitars a lot, and now I can actually fix them. So why don't I help people, you know, do that?" So that's what that was about.
Awesome.
Yeah, man.
Wait, is that the one that you have?
That's the one I have.
That's the one
yes.
that you have. Okay, I thought so. Because you're the guitar guy, and I'm the amp guy. So
you know. Make things. It's geometry, you know.
Right.
So I have to ask because we're here.
Yep.
Okay, so you live in Scottsdale, Arizona,
just outside.
Just outside, but they have a huge car auction there, Barrett Jackson.
So where did I go when I quit? Are you setting me up? I mean, do you know the answer?
Look at that segue.
So that was a good segue. Okay, yeah. So you know, no matter what you do for a living, you still need a hobby, right?
Yeah.
And you know, people would say, "Oh man, if I had Keith Richards' job, I would." No, that's his job. You know, I mean, I guess his job is getting high. Hobby is getting high, but you know what I mean. It's like no matter what you do for a living, you need a hobby, right? So even if you're working at Fender, you got to have something to do. And as you guys know, I mean, it's all the lure for some of us is the tinkering, is the stuff, you know, is how does it work, and
absolutely,
you know, how can you know, how close can you get to breaking it before you can fix it, and all that kind of thing. And growing up in New York City, I never owned a car, right?
You don't need to.
Yeah, exactly. So. But I always had a driver's license, and you know, when we moved out to Long Island, I would use my parents' car now and then. But you know, but I always read, like, you know, Hot Rod magazine, and you know, obviously listened to the Beach Boys and saw their album covers, and it was a whole thing there, you know, that obviously was very compelling to me, right? And so I move out here. I live outside. I live in a town called Fountain Hills, which is like outside of Scottsdale. We're kind of, have you ever been to Scottsdale? It kind of looks like Irvine, California to me. You know, it's like there is no desert here. We deny you all. You know, it's like, and where I live, you know, it's like it's actually a desert. You know, I mean, there's no grass and there's like cactus, and you're not allowed to water shit and stuff. Right. You know, so it's
because you'll water for the rest of your life and never see anything.
Exactly. You know. You know, so you know, we're out here, and I'm going, oh, okay, you know. So, and when I started working at Korg, I got a car. You know, it wasn't really anything. It was like a Saturn. I don't, you know, it's just some junk some Guild Starfire car. You know,
it's a point A to point B machine. You know.
Yeah, exactly.
Right,
you know,
right.
And you know, so I'm out here, and I have this kind of pent up knowledge and this desire to be, you know, to just play with stuff, and. One of the guys I work with took me to a cruise-in at this place called the Scottsdale Pavilions. And if you Google Scottsdale Pavilions car show or cruise-in, you'll see what that's about. And I went there, I went, like, holy mackerel, this is like, look at this. This is like, wow, look at these cars, you know? Yeah. And it's everything. I mean, you know, and back then it was all old cars because there really were no cool new cars being made yet. You know, we had yet to have a Viper or even the new Thunderbird or the redone Mustang. The Mustang at that point was a rebodied Fairmont. You know,
right? Exactly.
The Mustang too.
So it was really pretty exciting. And so back to my 10-year-old self. In 1963, I'm 10 years old. I'm at the New York World's Fair, and Ford unveils two cars that were new for '63. The one that everybody knows is the Mustang, which came out as a 63 and a half, right? Mm-hmm. And the other one was the newly rebodied Thunderbird. And if you went up,
yeah, 63 is the that was when they
Well, 64 was when they changed it over. 62, 3, 61, 2, and 3 had what they call the Bullet Bird, right?
Yes,
which is the one with it's the Bullet Bird, and then in 64 they went to what they called a Flare Bird, which was not square like the earlier ones, but was my favorite, right? And one of the reasons it was my favorite is because, again, this is how this stuff happens, right? When you went on the Ford ride/exhibit at the World's Fair, you sat in Thunderbird convertibles.
Wow.
And they were on, the engines were taken out of them, and they would go on tracks around, right? And and again, so here I am. It's like, God, I love this. I love this. It's like, this is like amazing, right? And I'm walking around this show, and this guy pulls up in a red 64 T-Bird convertible. And I it's like, like what is it, in A Bug's Life, with a guy who like flies into the zapper, you know what I mean? Yeah. So beautiful, I must, it's like, and it's like,
10 years old, I got to get in the ride.
And so I walk up to him, the guy who's driving it in. I say, wow, this is great, 64, right? He goes, yeah, 390, convertible, whatever, Yep. And I said, is this for sale? He says, absolutely not. I said, okay, well, if you ever change your mind, here's my card, right? And like 6 months later, I get a call. This is this Richie? Yeah, it is. It's like, this is Clark. I don't know if you remember me. I'm the guy with the red Thunderbird. I've got some family things, and I need to sell that car. If you have $7,000, you can come to my house tomorrow and drive it home.
Wow.
I said, okay.
Do I have to wait until tomorrow?
Yeah, exactly. So the long and the short of it was, I learned a lot on that car. I mean, it was all there. It was all original paint. I certainly knew what to do. I mean, I wet sanded it and made it look. It was like amazing because, it's old single stage paint, right?
Pigment. Yeah.
Yeah. And it was great. I mean, you're sanding it out, and the whole, everything on you turns red, right?
Yes.
But it has, it has a luster that dual stage just doesn't have that I kind of liked, on an old car. I wouldn't want it on a new car, but old cars that are painted with double stage paint, I think to me look fake,
Yep. Huh. Plus red is that's a natural pigment. So single stage, it just looks like you can walk right through it.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, yeah. It's if you go to my Facebook page, you can see I have a bunch of pictures of it. It was just
horrible for the environment. But
it's not my problem, man.
That's right. It was there before I got it.
It doesn't, it's fine.
Right.
Some guy in a plant probably got some kind of lung disease from it. But moving on.
These are the sacrifices we make.
Exactly.
So anyway, with that car, I learned how to, I mean, again, and you guys understand this, and I'm sure most of the people who are listening to this understand it. There's doing and there's understanding. If you understand how a 4-stroke engine works, you can fix a 4-stroke engine. It is only what it is.
Right.
The biggest part of doing it is having the nerve to go in there and say, okay, you know what? I'm taking the heads off of this car right now. And you just go and do it. And once you're committed, you have no choice but to fix it and put it back together. And so I learned a lot on that car. I rebuilt the engine. I rewired the whole thing. I mean, everything on that car was either vacuum actuated or, I mean, there were probably 40 relays in that car, Cause,
wow, God.
That's
right. It had a generator.
That car, that was like the first year with an alternator.
Really? It had an alternator. 64.
It had an alternator and it had a solid state ignition, which really was what it was.
Really?
Yeah, it had a single-ended amplifier. What it did is it took the points and just like bumped it up. It was just like a little amp in there.
Wow.
It was the beauty of it was how advanced it was. The problem was it was like a step ahead of itself as far as like a lot of the stuff was problematic,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, it's first generation development of whatever it was going to be.
Plus, Ford always has those weird, quirky things.
Yeah.
Like, the LTD would just pop into drive for no reason while it was sitting idling and then run over you.
And want to go.
They always have those weird little things with Ford.
Yeah. So and I'm not really a GM guy, so I like the Ford. I like Fords and Chryslers. Just like that order, and but never really, the GM thing never really sparked me, you know. But so I had that T-Bird for a good long time, and I really learned a lot on it. And but you know, at one point, and I was, you know, I was doing all right, you know, and enjoying life. And I said, oh, it's time for number 2. And this dovetails it. So the auction you're talking about, which is Barrett Jackson. Yes. There's actually like 4 or 5 others. There's Barrett Jackson. There's Russo and Steel. There's RM. There's
Meekum.
Well, no, but Meekum doesn't have an auction in Scottsdale. I'm talking about in 1 week.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. In 1 week, you have Barrett Jackson. You have RM. You have the other guy, I forget the other one. The real high end stuff doesn't, you know, the Duesenberg guys.
Is it Christie? Not Christie's.
Yeah, you got it though. Bonhams.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
With the English guy that doesn't talk fast.
Yeah, exactly. And in the back, the gentleman for $4.5 million. I have $4.5 million. Would you give me $475?
The guy on the phone.
I was like, you know,
Jared on the phone. Are you going $5 million?
Yes, exactly.
We have $5 million here, sir. It's back to you.
Yes, that's it. You're there.
I love that. And here's the thing. And you'll appreciate this, Richie, because obviously you still know how the market is, right? Are you still with it?
Oh, I'm very much in it.
Okay, so we were talking about this the other day. So 70s Strats, which are horrible, they are going up in value like crazy, right?
Yep.
Well, the reason is because all the 60s Strats are out of everybody's range.
That's right.
Right? You know, it's like, oh, I got to pay $45,000 for a Strat. Okay. I'll go with the 70 that's only $17,000.
They're too expensive or they're in Japan.
So the 300 SL Mercedes sells for like $1.5 million.
That's right, for sure.
And but back in the day, you couldn't get rid of a SL 190, or I'm sorry, a 190 SL.
Yeah, like a pagoda top one. Yeah.
Yeah, because it was the evil stepchild of the 300, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and now they're selling for $265,000. So the guy that would have bought that car for $35,000 10 years ago has just, you know,
cashed in.
So it's so crazy how that Thunderbird that he would have had
supply and demand, you know,
for $7,000. God, what would it sell for today?
So I actually I sold it. We're bouncing around here, but I sold that car. I didn't actually sell it. I traded it for a new GT500 convertible.
Oh, there you go.
Wow.
Even up, you know, to the local Ford, the big Ford dealer in town. And the way this happens, it's like this is why I know. I mean, I'm, you know, clean living, kids, clean living, right? While I was at Fender, we wanted to do some local promotion stuff, and Barrett Jackson is obviously a big deal in town. And it just so happened their head of marketing contacted me, right? And at the time, the gal, her name his name still is, but she's no longer there, Allison Goldwater. And in Arizona, the name Goldwater is pretty famous, right?
Yeah, I've heard that name.
Yeah, and she is Barry's granddaughter, right?
Okay.
And Allison and I became very good friends, and we did some stuff at Barrett Jackson, and you know, it was good. But while we were doing that, one of their sponsors was Ford. Right. And I got to meet a number of the Ford brass. You know, I have some good pictures of me with the guy who was at the time VP of South America, who's now the CEO of Ford. I wonder if he'll still take my calls. You know, Mark Fields. But, you know, I'm going to get this all together here. So we're at the Scottsdale Pavilions, right? And the guys from Ford are there, and some of the brass, right? And I'm driving at the time a Fox Body 5.0, right, is my daily driver. And we start talking to the Ford guys, right? And they say, you know, we're coming out with a new Mustang. You know, it's really cool. We're going to, you know, we got Carroll Shelby here. Oh, yeah, good to meet you. You know, it's like, and all that kind of stuff. And we have the first prototype of the GT500 here. It's like this red prototype that they put together. Would you like to drive it? I said, well, you know, I'm good with a stick, but I'm not a GT500 good with a stick. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm Leslie, my wife, God bless her, who's, you know, and this is Jermaine. And so it's like, she's a good looking gal, you know, tall, blonde, good looking gal, you know, says, I kill with a stick. And and Robert Parker, who was the head of marketing at Ford, says, "Really?" And he goes, "Oh yeah, I learned how to drive on a stick. My dad, I'm one of three. My dad had two boys, and he didn't understand that. I can drive that car, no problem."
Awesome.
500 horsepower.
So Robert throws her the keys, and I'm not the passenger. The passenger is a gal named Muffy Bennett, who, if you watch Barrett Jackson, you know who Gary Bennett is. He's the guy with the long gray hair who works with Steve. He's the head of consignment, right?
Okay.
So Muffy is also a good-looking gal, right? Mm-hmm. So here are these two gorgeous blondes in the prototype GT500, and Leslie gets there and just like nails this thing and like squirrels out of the parking lot and heads out onto the highway for like a half an hour.
A half an hour.
Right? Right. During which time, I've got the head of Shelby, the head of marketing for Ford, Robert, the sales manager of Sanderson Ford, which is the largest Ford dealer in Southwest, right? Who is eyeing my Thunderbird because I'm showing pictures of it because they go, "You're a Ford guy? Go check the Look, yeah, he's driving a Fox body. He's got this thing. He's a Ford guy. We got to hook him up. And I'm going, guys, please. Leave me alone. I'm being car dealered by Hulk Hogan. It's like forget about these guys. Whatever a car dealer is, imagine the sales manager from the #1 Southwest, the head of marketing at Shelby, the head of marketing at Ford, and their district sales manager, right? And I finally I said, guys, I am not buying that car. I'm not buying a new car. I love my 5.0. I just drive it to work. I like my old Thunderbird, right? And that's just the way it is. And we start talking about the weather.
Awesome.
Leslie comes driving up.
And now you're buying the car.
Right between us, and looks at Robert, the marketing guy from Ford, and says, "Honey, you should buy this car."
There you go.
And Neil Schrock, the guy who is the head of the sales manager at the dealership, says, "I'll trade you for that Thunderbird of yours."
Really?
Holy crap.
Yeah. And
whoa.
And that was
you got the prototype.
That one.
No, I didn't get that one.
Oh, okay.
It's worse than that. They said, well, there's like a 6-month waiting for these, but because we'll put you on the VIP program, just go down and tell us what you want on it. I said, well, what are the options? There's only one option. It's a 1,000-watt stereo. And convertible and two-tone. No, there's actually 3 options. There's two-tone interior, a 1,000-watt stereo, which of course, running off of 12 volts. Anybody whoever did Ohm's law knows what horse crap that is. Right. It's like the entire universe would go dim before that thing hits 1,000. But anyway, so it's two-tone interior and convertible. So I said, look, Neil, I'll trade you my Thunderbird. I want a white. Two-tone, black and red interior, convertible. He said, okay. I said, I wanted you to say no.
Damn it, you made it too easy.
Yeah, so I got one. It's got a low serial number. It's the first year, first run of GT500s. It's, white with the two-tone, and I got it. I still have it. I love it. It's the best car I ever owned. And I'm not really a fan of what they've done to it, so I'm really happy with what I got. And
nice.
So then, I'm pretty miserable at Fender at this point. And I'm talking to Gary and these guys, and I said, I really like to get a second car, And I said, Gary says, well, what are you looking for? Like an idiot, right? I'm telling dealers, it's like I'm looking for a car. I said, well, I'm looking for I'd like I like an E-body Mopar, 440, 3.2 kind of thing, And he said, Craig just bought a Buda convertible, that's a $3 million. I said, it's good. He says, well, he's got a
426 Hemi, right?
Yeah. He just got one of those. So he said, but so he's going to sell his 446 pack 70. And I said, really? Can I come down and look at it?
Oh, we lost him a little bit there. I'm sorry, Richie.
Yeah. Sorry.
Can you say that again? It was a 446 pack. What?
Yeah, it was a 446 pack Challenger, 71 Challenger.
There you go.
You there?
Yeah,
we're
yeah.
Yeah, we're here.
Okay. So,
Now we lost him.
went down there with my pad and my, because if you know anything about Mopars, everything is on that fender tag and every number. I mean, it's either is or it isn't, right?
Mm-hmm.
And every number matched. Even every body panel had. It was just like the thing was ridiculous, right?
Wow.
And so I said, what does Craig want for this? Give me a number, and I said, no, I'm not paying that. That's ridiculous. He said, what are you willing to pay? I said, I'm willing to pay. And he said, I'll tell Craig. And Craig, told me to go to hell. And that was like kind of in November, right? Mm. The auction comes in January. Craig didn't run the car, right, because it didn't start, right? And he's got it in the car corral, right, for sale for the number that he wants, and it doesn't sell, right, because it rained all weekend and the car is up to its hubs and looks like crap, you know what I mean? So on the last day of the auction, I go to Craig, I say, I'll buy that car. Mm-hmm. He goes, well, you know what, I'm not going to take what you want, give me for it. I said, well, then I won't buy that car. And so that was like January, and then on and on. And Leslie and I are out of this is so great. Leslie and I are out of town on Memorial Day. And my cell phone rings. And it's Gary. Right? He says, you still interested in that Challenger? Yeah, absolutely. He says, Craig's getting divorced.
Oh. Say no more.
Wow.
I said, yes.
Oh, that's a shame.
The timing, that's a terrible shame. Terrible shame. I'll be right over.
Yeah, I feel terrible. I'll be there Monday with the check, which we did. So I got that, and I spent about 6 months putting that right, and wet sanding that too, and getting the electricals worked out so that when you turned on the headlights stayed off, and all that kind of stuff. And
what year did you buy it?
It's a 70. What did I buy it?
Yeah.
Okay, so you see, I know where you're going. So I bought it in 2004, right before.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So what happened, just for the listeners?
Yes.
They exploded, and right before 2008, those cars were going for ridiculous numbers.
Yeah, I was off $1,000 for it in 2008.
How much?
$160,000.
Wow.
Yeah, and that's a 440, right? 446 pack.
440 with 3 2s.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's a little rare because of the 3 2s. But a 440 Magnum is, that was their big block.
The 440, the 383 was standard. The 440
was the performance, yeah. And then the 426 was the Mac Daddy.
That was the Hemi.
Yeah. Good luck.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. Those, like you said, sell for $3 million.
Yeah. So just so you know, here are the numbers, because I'm a numbers guy. They made 112 of them of my car.
Holy crap!
112. Wow. And of those, there are 6 known to exist. And
6.
And mine is one of them. Yeah. And it's a very rare, very cool car. And I love to drive it. I drive it all the time, which, everybody tells me is ridiculous. But if I don't, let's all together, right? Vintage guitar, if you don't drive it, you don't honor it. It's nonsense.
And
so
unless you're Goldberg and you got, because he's got like 85 Mopars in his garage, and they're all like, all restored back to every nut and bolt, and he drives like 2.
Yeah, well,
I'm not a fan of that. I don't, even if he's, I've seen that collection. I know. I get it. I get it. We all went through that. It was a time when I had 7 guitars too. You know what I mean? But it's like, I just think there's something. I just don't like it. I think you should get the ones you need. A couple of. I have 2 cool cars. The car I drive to the office every day is a 2010? What is it? I don't even know. It's a 10-year-old, Altima. It's like it's a car.
Right.
Yeah.
It's a mode of transportation.
The hoarding. I don't like it.
Yeah, there's some guys out there with ridiculous collections, and But
back in the day, a friend of mine in Jersey had a 1970 purple 440 Cuda.
My first car.
I love driving that thing.
My first car was a 70 Roadrunner with the air grabber hood and a 440 underneath the hood. And
nice.
back then you couldn't find parts for it. You had everything was junkyard. today there's so many reproduction. I mean, we could make a show out of this.
Right. But watch me turn this around. Because
here we go.
Richie, back
Yes,
to
sir.
convertibles for a second.
Yes.
Is my cranial cavity remembering an ad with you in a convertible?
Huh. Not that I can remember.
No.
No, we did a promo shot for we did a back amp, and we did the shot of it. We used my T-Bird in the, we'd put the guitar and with the top down in the car, but I wasn't. Doesn't sound familiar to me.
No, I think that's what I'm talking
okay.
about. The promo. It was for we lost you for a second there, but was it for something like called the Can?
Yeah, the amp can.
Amp Can.
Yeah, it was
That's too funny.
Little battery powered amp.
I remember that.
Designed by, George designed that amp.
Who did?
George Sayer. I don't know if you know.
Oh, okay. And we're gonna hold the Michael Corleone story for our next episode.
Yeah. I mean, we could talk for days, and it ran long. So
Yeah, it was. That's quite a bit of information for one episode. So we'll come back with what Richie is doing now.
Yeah, with a career like that, it's going to take more than just one shot.
It is.
Yeah.
And thank you, Richie, for taking the time.
Yes.
And we're going to take a little more of your time on the next episode of the Amps and Axes podcast.
So, I guess I should say, until next time, I'm Mick Marcelino. You, and you,
I still am Jeff Bober.
One day we'll
don't go changing.
One day, this is never rehearsed, and we are saying
onward.
Be sure and follow the show on Twitter at Amps and Axes. Also, make sure you like the show on Facebook. For news, comments, and everything else, visit the webpage, ampsandaxescast.com. Thanks for listening.